Hi, I'm Lena, welcome or welcome back to my channel, and today I want to share with you 22 book recommendations for mood readers. These prompts were all made by you. I asked you guys what kind of mood you're often in, and I'm gonna recommend all of you a book to read with that mood. Some were easier than others because I love how specific you all got. But it does mean that some books are so outside of a mood that I am in that it was hard to recommend you a book that I've actually read. I could think of a book that I know exists with those themes, but of course I'm only going to recommend you books for this video that I have actually read and enjoyed. So I have 22 books today, which is quite a lot, so sit down, get yourself a cup of tea, expect to fill your TBR with some new books. The first mood is the exhilarating feeling you get from riding a roller coaster. It's been a hot minute since I was on a roller coaster, but I imagine this being a book that you can read in a sitting, that you are engaged with the whole way through, and that kind of makes you forget the world around you. So I'm going to recommend a book that did that for me, and that is Byatt by Akwaeke Emezi. This is about the utopian world, or seemingly utopian world, and we follow Jem, who is the girl on the cover, and she discovers a monster in her utopian world. She knows that these monsters used to exist, but they're supposed to not exist anymore. And together with a friend, she tries to find out why the monster is there and what his purpose is in the utopian world, and it has quite a dark twist. Definitely something you can read in a sitting. It has the themes of an adult novel, but it's definitely written for a younger audience. Mood number 2 is something with the Moominland series vibes, plus something light and cozy to read while you're ill. I say if you're ill, go for the audiobook, even though I loved the illustration in this book, and that is The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Graham. I read this one really recently, and I read the Moominlands as well quite recently, and they really remind me of one another. They have something very similar in theme, and that is that you have a fantasy world where animals, or I think Moominlands is also fantasy creatures, have a world of their own outside of the human world. And where Moomin is very Scandinavian, this is incredibly British, which I really enjoyed. It felt like you were in the world of Gaskell, Dickens, but it's set in the wild country of England, and we have a lot of animals who have their own life. My favorite character is either Mole, or it has to be Toad, because Toad is just hilarious. He lives this Downton Abbey life, but he is very wild and he wants to go on all these adventures, but he has no skills for life. It's definitely less adorable in the way that it has more hints, more obvious hints, I think, to the daily life of this time than a Moominlands does. But I do think it is generally funnier. I just think if you like the Moominlands, then you will also really enjoy this. I would also highly recommend this edition because it has gorgeous newer illustrations. It's by Templar Books, so if you are looking for this edition, then look for that. The third mood is candlelit book talk with book buddies on a cottage getaway after a long hike. I think you can read basically any book in that setting because it just sounds so cozy. Anything will be fun, but I would have to recommend, I think, the book that every book club should read together because there is so much to talk about. I always really enjoy discussing this book with other people, and that is J.R.R. by Charlotte Brontë. This is such a famous classic, and if you're planning to read this, which I highly suggest you do, then definitely read it with the book club because there is so much to talk about. This was one of my favorite books as well to discuss with the Brontë Long. J.R.R. is about a girl called Jane who is an orphan, and she goes through life trying to make her way. Eventually we meet her as a governess, where she meets Mr. Rochester, with whom she develops something. Some people are fans of this romance, others are not. I am not. But it's still such a captivating read, and J.R.R. is one of the best written characters of all time. So you have so much to discuss if you read this together. Ultimate book buddy read. Fourth mood is like a mood in capital letters, and that is lazy and mad. So I'm assuming you mean mad as in angry. So I'm going to recommend Reputation by Lex Croucher. This is a historical romance about a girl who tries to make friends above her station. We have a close friendship group of which she becomes a part. And of course we also have a love interest who is somehow connected to that group, and we follow her, I think, through a Regency season as she kind of tries to find her place within this group. It is a very easy read, which I think is where the lazy comes in. We also have some wonderful female rage, which is where the mad comes in. I always like to read about female rage. when I am in a bad mood, when I'm angry. It feels so satisfying. I really enjoyed Reputation as well because it was so fun and engaging. I think a lot of people will enjoy Reputation, especially when you're in a bad mood. Mood number 5 is in need of distraction but not much mental space or energy for hard reading. When I'm in this mood, there is one genre and one genre only I go to these days, and that is romance. So I'm going to recommend to you my most recent romance obsession, or the author I've been reading most of lately, and that is Emily Henry. I think I do prefer beach read over book lovers because my reading experience was more connected to the characters at the time, but I don't think beach read is right for this mood because beach read is quite serious at parts and it's not a great distraction because it reminds you a lot of your own problems. I think book lovers is a bit lighter, so if you're in that specific mood and you want an Emily Henry, I haven't read all of her work, but I have read book lovers and beach read, I say go for book lovers. We follow Nora and she works in the publishing industry and she meets Charlie. They have a very mediocre meeting and then Nora's sister says she needs a distraction, she wants to go on a vacation, and Nora, who is a very loyal sister, loyal older sister, goes with her on that vacation and they go to the small village where apparently Charlie's family lives, and Nora and Charlie start to interact more even though they don't really start out liking each other. Clearly we have a romance that develops, a really emotional, slow romance. It was very, very endearing to me. Even though these characters definitely have their more grey area characteristics, they definitely have their weaker points when it comes to openly showing kind emotions. I think it's harsh to say about Nora, but it's just how people perceive her. It's not who she actually is. So when we get more to the core of her and to Charlie, it is incredibly endearing. Their love scenes were really cute and really sweet, and I thought it was just so realistic and such a beautiful setup for a lasting relationship. This book can make you believe in love again, which is not something I would often say on contemporary romance. It can make you believe in great chemistry, but not necessarily in a long-lasting love relationship, but this book kind of did. So I think this will get you out of a funk and you will just feel quite happy and content while reading this. It does have its hardships because I think Emily Henry books always do, but I didn't feel like it was that much on the foreground of this book. Okay, we have moved over to the shelves because I own most of the books I want to talk to you about next, and they all live in my historical fiction contemporary shelf. So mood number 6. Feeling lost and uncertain about everything, but grateful for the wonderful friends that help you. It's great to read something about looking for yourself, about identity, but with a hopeful tone. So I'm going to recommend to you something I barely recommend, and that is contemporary poetry. But this really did something with me, and that is The Princess Saves Herself in This One by Amanda Lovelace. If you are hesitant to read this, so was I. This was a gift that was not from my wishlist, just a gift from my aunt. I really appreciate it, but I didn't think it would be for me because I barely ever love contemporary poetry, but this was really good. This is about some tough themes that I think the author deals with. It's a lot about her self-worth. It's a lot about relationships with others and how that can build you and destroy you. It is very hopeful though, because the subject of these poems, you can notice that they have figured it out, kind of, that they're on a better track than they used to be. And it's about looking back and viewing how things have changed and how the relationships in their life are better now. I think this is the right book for that kind of mood, and it will make you feel emotional, but also better about the shit that's not really great about your life right now. Mood number 7. Need to escape to the woods, live in a cottage and own a cute farm. I mean, when are we not in that mood though? I'm going to recommend to you Botanical Folktales because this is a very cozy retelling of different British folktales. A lot of them I didn't know. Of course, it has familiar mythical themes, and I thought it was non-fiction, but it's much more lyrical, and I think it is great if you enjoy fantasy, if you enjoy fairy tales. This really takes you back to myth and to people living in the forest and different kind of mythical stories. It can get a little bit repetitive because they're all so similar, but just take your time reading this. Yeah, you will get all the cozy forest vibes from this book. Mood number 8 is I just want something that will captivate me. And I'm gonna recommend a book that maybe you've heard of, probably you've heard of, and you've been like, is this for me? Well, if you want to be captivated, then this is gonna be for you. And that is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabriel Zevin. This is about two people who have almost, I want to say, a lifelong friendship with Of course, it's trials and tribulations. They meet when they're both kids. He is in the hospital and she is visiting her sister in the hospital, and they bond in the waiting room over playing a game together in the 80s. That starts off their love for gaming, and that is what bonds them later as well. In their 20s, they're building games together. In their 30s, other things happen. I'm not gonna spoil the book for you. This was so captivating. The writing is so captivating. Captivating is generally the word I would use to describe this book. While reading this book, I was really invested in what would happen to the characters. They are not necessarily great people because they do a lot of shitty things as well. I think they do equally shitty things as equally good things, which of course makes them feel very real. This book broke my heart at times, and I just loved all the nerdy bits, especially how passionate people get about nerdy things is one of my favorite things in people in general. But I think the writing is what will captivate you in this novel. Mood number 9 is Life is Just Meh, which I think you're also in need of a little bit of hope, a little bit of adventure, a little bit of passion. So I'm going to recommend to you The Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Williams. This is about a character whose life is also a little bit meh, but she kind of fixes that. She makes her life more adventurous, makes her life more fun by developing a passion for words, for collecting words, because her father is part of the Oxford English Dictionary and they are making this incredible big dictionary, but they don't think especially women's words are very important to add. It has more nuance than that. You just read it and you will find out. But true passion for words, our main character really reaches out to other people. She goes on adventures, she has secrets, she meets people, and I think she goes from life just being kind of boring to making it awesome through a passion. I feel when life is meh, what you need is something to be passionate about. In that respect, I think this was quite inspiring to me. Early morning, mist on the fields as you drink a tea and slowly watch the sunrise. You need to read about nature. Poetry could be an option, but I often really like to read non-fiction in the morning. It's just something I enjoy most because it kind of connects me to the world in a way more than fiction would do. I don't know, it's just how my brain works. So instead of recommending poetry by this author, I'm going to recommend some non-fiction, and that is Upstream by Mary Oliver. Mary Oliver is a poet who writes beautifully about nature. It's not necessarily the poet for me, but I can see her incredible value and her talent as a poet. I think I enjoyed her non-fiction more. This is about animals. It's about her living remotely, finding animals, helping animals, observing them. I think she so beautifully describes the cycle of life and the cycle of nature with all of its aspects and humanity's involvement in that as well. And if you're drinking a hot cup of anything in the morning outside, then this is your perfect companion. Okay, mood number 11 is when you are awake at 3 AM listening to lo-fi while it's raining outside. And oh dear, is this a mood? Not a mood I am very often in, because if I'm awake at 3 AM, that barely ever happens, luckily. There are just some books that you need to read at night, and one of those books for me was Possession by A.S. Byatt. This is about two scholars who find information about two poets and about the relationship between these two poets. So we have part contemporary day, or 90s is when this takes place, about these scholars trying to find out something about these poets, and then we have another storyline where we read mainly diary entries from these poets. This whole book was just kind of a vibe, because you have poetry as well, you have different formats of writing, because of course you read things that those poets wrote as well. And I feel like books that are just a vibe are so often books to read at night. I gave this book 3 stars. The subject matter wasn't necessarily for me, but if you love to read about academia, if you love to read about poets, and if you also kind of like to read poetry, then this is something that can definitely keep you company late at night. Maybe find classical lo-fi. I think that would fit this book better, but I definitely listened to lo-fi music while reading this book as well. Mood number 12 is having a heartfelt convo with a friend which feels like a comforting hug. I'm going to recommend one of the warmest books with the most warm and loving characters, and that is What You Can See From Here by Mariana Leky. Or Mariana Leky. It is German and translated to the English. This is about a woman who lives in a small German town. We follow her first in her childhood and later throughout her adulthood, who mainly has beautiful relationships with sound family. Granted, I think her most beautiful relationship is with her grandmother, who raises her, mainly raises her in the ways that matter. And she meets other people as well, and all these people that she has, like friendships and romantic relationships, are so, I don't know how to describe this, it's so beautiful, and it shows how fragile love is and how vulnerable we feel when we start to care about someone. The emotions of the main character felt so familiar and so real to me. This was one of the first books I read in 2022 and something I instantly dearly loved, and I think it felt like a comforting hug. Book number 13 is magical and queer quick reads that make you feel all fuzzy. I am going to recommend The Witches of Moonshyne Manor for this. The title already says it. It is magical. We follow a group of elderly witches who live at Moonshyne Manor, and they do witchy stuff, but their finances aren't great and they're going to be evicted. All of these characters were so much fun. All of these witches were so much fun. They really all had their own character. A few of them are queer. This really has a great combination of queer and magical. It's also quite an easy read. I listened to it and had a lot of fun while doing so. Mood number 14 is when it's super cold and icy outside and you just want to escape from exam season. That's been a while for me. But I know what you need. You need a moment. First of all, because it's so fun to read about winter when it's winter outside and it's ultimate winter. This is the only Moomin book I have read, but it's Moominland and Midwinter, and it's about Moomin who wakes up during hibernation and he makes a lot of friends. This was such a wonderful escape. I read this for the 24-hour readathon, so I read it in one sitting, and you need a blanket and a pillow and a cup of tea when you're reading this, and it will be so cozy. And I think it is different enough from our reality that you will not have to think about any of your exams. Mood number 15 is simply cozy. And I was thinking about fantasy, about middle grade, but you know what I find really cozy? Some Victorian writing. It's such great escapism and it is so chill and comfortable. So I'm going to recommend to you Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell. Cranford is a town where all old ladies live, mainly old ladies who really have their own world. They really care about their standards and they really care about how they dress and what they eat, and they gossip a lot, and it's just so cozy. It does have some more plot-driven, action-packed storylines in here as well, but I'm going to leave you to discover those. I just watched Cranford, the TV series, the miniseries as well, which so cozy. So if you're not interested in a book but you do like the sound of it, then maybe watch the miniseries because it has the same level of coziness. Okay, we have arrived at mood number 16. A book that will get you so giddy and excited over people who only exist in ink. And I know this is one from Sarah, so I'm going to recommend a book that I really think Sarah should read. So if you're like a subscriber to her channel, feel free to tell her, pressure her, no, I'm just kidding. And that is Frenchman's Creek by Daphne du Maurier. This was such a pleasant surprise. This is about Donna, or Donna, I think it's Donna because it has one N. And she is so bored with her husband. It is set in, oh dear, I think 16th century. And she's very bored with her husband and she decides to take her children, take the nanny, and she goes to their country home. And she meets with the society, her society that lives there. They say that the country is plagued by pirates, and instead of being scared, she's actually intrigued. She meets the Frenchmen and things start there. Romance, things like that, honestly. Donna is great, she is fun. She makes a lot of fun of her own society and she is very witty and funny and sexually open in her communication, and she shocks a lot of people with that. And then we also have the pirate who is very mysterious, which was a lot of fun. I felt really engaged with these characters, and Sarah, I think you will too. Mood number 16 is actually very similar. Sometimes all I want is to spend a lot of time with the characters as if I'm part of their lives. And for that I'm going to recommend to you The Christie Affair. This is a historical fiction about Agatha Christie, her husband and her husband mistress. You get quite a lot of time and information about all three characters, which I really enjoyed. It is super character based. Of course there is like a mystery that you want to unravel because it's also about the days that Agatha Christie disappeared, and the author kind of fills in what that could have been, even though we don't know. No one knows, only Agatha Christie knew. But it's so fun to spend time with these characters. They really vividly come to life. So if you are a very character based reader, then this is one you will enjoy. Again, I think I gave this like 3.5 stars. It's not perfect in other respects, but when it comes to characters, this book is really strong. Mood number 18 is a mood that I am personally never in, so this was very difficult for me to recommend, but that is, I love books about the power that music has on people's life. Character development, relationships. I think music and sports are two themes for me that I always have some difficulty connecting to, so I never really read about it. There's one World book series that has music and poetry that I really enjoy the music and the poetry of. I'm sure you can guess what I'm talking about. But of course I'm talking about the Lord of the Rings series. This is the Fellowship of the Ring. I think so far it has the most songs of what I've read and what I've enjoyed most so far. Would recommend listening to Andy Serkis, who narrates the new audiobooks, singing these songs, and it adds so much because he does the voices so perfectly. But I think the characters in the Lord of the Rings, when they want to communicate something that has more emotion or history, when they tell each other their past, they often sing. Or when they tell the past of their ancestors. I think dwarves sing a lot and elves as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when they talk about what it means to be a dwarf or an elf, they sing. So I feel like it is rooted very deeply within their culture to sing. I guess that is the power of music, and I really enjoy it in The Lord of the Rings. If you're hesitant to read this like me, but you do enjoy classics, then I think you could definitely give this a go, because I enjoyed it so much more than I thought I ever would. Mood number 19 is a book for when I'm tired but still want to be moved. Something cozy but powerful. This is a mood I am very often in myself. Especially when you said cozy but powerful, I went to Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. This is set in the 50s and the 60s, and we follow a woman who is a chemist. And later she becomes a cook on TV. It is incredibly powerful when it comes to sexism, to women in the workplace. It has maybe a little bit too much discussions on that, but it is very powerful and very present. And it's also incredibly cozy because we have the narration of a dog, we have all the food and all the cooking, we have romantic love, we have love between parents, between friends. So it has both those elements a lot, and most importantly I think it is an easy book to read when you're tired because the writing is very simple. To my personal taste it was a little bit too simple, but it did really work for me when I was tired and I wanted to read it. I think Lessons in Chemistry is the perfect kind of read if you're looking for those three elements. Mood number 20 is I'm often in the mood for a good literary fiction book that has a bit of a dark tone. I like Little Fires Everywhere and The Secret History. I've heard things about Little Fires Everywhere, I've read The Secret History. This is not a dark academia book because I have so little to recommend those, but Little Fires Everywhere isn't either I think, but this is incredibly dark in themes and the writing is gorgeous and literary, and that is Love After Love by Ingrid Persaud. This is about three people who are semi-family, semi-found family. We have a mother and her son and a man who moved in with them, who doesn't have a romantic relationship with the mom, but he just needed a place to stay, and they kind of form a family. We meet all these three people and all of them have quite a dark secret. It's not secret to us, maybe in the beginning a little bit, but we find out their secrets quite early on. But they keep all of those things secret to one another. This book does have a lot of content warning, so be aware of that before you get into this. But I think it will really hit that spot if you like literary with dark themes, because that is definitely really present in this book. I think the title is funny because it says love twice, love after love. But I feel like loving is something that these characters have such a hard time with because of all those dark elements and traumatic elements in their lives. Give this one a go. We have arrived at the last two recommendations. Mood number 21 is I'm always in a mood for something with a medieval setting. I also enjoy lyrical prose or writing style. I am kind of in a similar mood lately. I never gravitate towards medieval settings, but I have been the last 2 months. So one book, I think it is 1 century, technically after a medieval setting, I still think it kind of counts. It is set in 1686, so it's technically a little bit later, but I do think you will still like this. And that is The Glass Woman by Karen Lee. This is set in Iceland and we meet a woman who marries a man she barely knows and then she moves to his village. Once we're there, it kind of gives a Rebecca vibe by Daphne du Maurier. This has such a great atmosphere. It is super cold, it is super wintry. I personally really enjoy the Rebecca trope, and that kind of is in here as well. And I really like the pacing in how we get to know the mystery of this book. This book isn't perfect, but I think if you like the setting, if you like the time, then this is something that could be part of your historical fiction reading. Then the very last mood, which I guess is a mood everyone is in sometimes, and it says, a book for when I'm irritable and can't stand to be around anyone in real life. Something to get out of those emotions or calm them. I'm going to recommend to you The Maid. This is a mystery thriller, but it is mainly about our main character who has similar issues where she really values the contact she has with other people, but she can't always stand it. Sometimes she just needs time to herself. You slowly get to know her and you get to know the simplicity of her life, but also what is difficult to her. And I like that we got so much time with this character trying to figure things out. And of course you have the fun mystery part of it, which is not why I'm recommending this for this mood, but I think it is nice to read about someone with similar feelings who just exists, but also kind of gets out of her shell in a very respectful and slow manner. So I think it is nice to be in this atmosphere when you're in this mood, and I think it would be a calming experience. I noticed I wasn't able to recommend something for all your suggestions. So sorry about that, but thank you so much for leaving me a suggestion. I will do a video like this again very soon. So those were the book recommendations for mood readers. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, then don't forget to subscribe for more book recommendations. If you have any book recommendations based on these moods, leave them in the comments down below. I think we would all like to hear what you think. For now, I hope you have a lovely, lovely day or evening, and I hope to see you in another video. Doei!